Namaskar and welcome to Sansad Television. I am Vishal Dahiya and you're watching our show Perspective, where we bring you detailed analysis of key national and international issues. Today we're going to talk about the left-wing extremism. Now, a number of left-wing extremist outfits have been operating in certain remote and poorly connected pockets of the country for a few decades now. The government has adopted a holistic approach to deal with left-wing extremism in the areas of security development, ensuring rights and entitlement of local communities, improvement in government and public perception management as well. The National Policy Action Plan to address left-wing extremism, which was approved in 2015, has development as one of the most important components. In fact, these efforts have started showing promising results over the years. Left-wing extremism-related violence in the country has declined by around 77% from an all-time high of 2,258 incidents in 2009 to 509 incidents in 2021. Security forces and civilian casualties due to these incidents has also declined by approximately 85% from an all-time high of 1,005 in 2010 to 147 in 2021. Today, we will discuss and analyze all aspects of this issue, and we're joined by a distinguished panel of experts. For this, let me first introduce them to you, beginning with Mr. K. Durga Prasad, who is joining us. He is the former Director General of Central Reserve Police Force. We're also joined by retired Major General Dhruv C. Katoch, Director of India Foundation, and Mr. Anil Chaudhary, former Secretary, Internal Security, Ministry of Home Affairs, is also with us. And we also have Mr. Nitin Agarwal, the present Additional Director General of Central Zone of the CRPF, that is Central Reserve Police Force. Welcome, all of you gentlemen, to Sansad Television. Let me begin with you straight away, Mr. Durga Prasad, and let's start by understanding, since you've been at the helm of affairs for a significant amount of time there and has dealt with this issue firsthand. Let's first try and understand, the left-wing extremism per se, one, and two, where do we stand today? These figures obviously point out there is a huge improvement when we are looking at almost a decade or so. But what is the present scenario?
You asked two questions. What is a left-wing extremism per se, and then what is its present status? Well, if you look at it, people do deliberate on it. Is it a law and order problem, or is it a development problem issue, or what is it? But for me, after seeing this for a long time and looking at the ideology of the left-wing extremists, it is more of a political issue, because they do believe that ultimately they are going to capture political power by making bases in the forest areas and in remote villages, and then encircle urban centers and establish their own power. So they would like to throw out duly elected governments, democratic governments, and bring in their own rule. That's the ultimate goal for them.
Okay.
But there was a point of time when the Prime Minister of this country himself had gone on record saying that this is one of the biggest law and order challenges that we are facing, and we have to use all the resources at our command to weed it out. So if that was from that status at one point of time, today we have come to a place where the number of districts affected by this menace has come down from 126 to 96 to 90. And today we have got about 46 districts in 2011, which are identified as extremist affected. And about the highly affected districts has come down to about 25. And because the amount of activity that has been there, both on two fronts, one on the offensive, the two on the development.
Okay.
On both the fronts, the measures have been so effective that in Andhra and Telangana, for example, from where it has, the People's War Group had its basis and started from this place. And even today, a majority of the leadership of the Maoists are from Andhra and Telangana, mostly Telangana, the state from which I come. And there, we don't find any impact at all. They have lost their foothold totally. Okay. The same thing happened in West Bengal. Today, they don't have any base in West Bengal. And look at it from the Bihar. Again, except two or three pockets, they don't have any bases. The same is the case in Jharkhand. So if you ask, if I have to take an assessment, then I'll say Bihar and Jharkhand are low-hanging fruits. We put all our focus on them. Okay. Then we can immediately get the benefit out of it. Okay. The major challenge is today in Chhattisgarh. That's also, again, not the entire Chhattisgarh. Earlier, North Chhattisgarh also had the problem, but it's now wiped out there. We have problem only in the Bastar, and that too in the southern Bastar area. So as a geographical area, if you look at it, when Chhattisgarh was separated from Madhya Pradesh, they had about 18,000 square kilometers of area, which is under the impact of the Naxal menace. Today it's come down to less than 7,000, and that also to certain pockets. So our focus probably, if we put more of focus on these areas, once we clear the other sectors. So when you look at even Odisha, for example, except a few pockets in Malkangiri and others, Odisha is free from this menace. Those areas which are adjoining Chhattisgarh for Odisha or for Madhya Pradesh and Maharashtra, those are the areas where there is a problem today.
Okay.
What we anticipate is that
that's an apt sum up, Mr. Durga Prasad. You mentioned about the central zone as well. Areas like Chhattisgarh. We have Mr. Nitin Agarwal. I'll bring him in the discussion. But before I do that, let me have a quick comment from both General Katoch and Mr. Anil as well. General Katoch, your perspective on not only the security aspect, but as Mr. Durga Prasad was pointing out, it's also per se the community engagement or the developmental aspect as well, and the political part of it can be easily dealt with. Once there is a community engagement and the developmental works are on the path. Do you agree?
Yes, yes, Vishal, I agree with everything which has been stated by Mr. Durga Prasad. You see, I've always felt you require political penetration into every single district. West Bengal, it has been cleared because there has been political penetration. So now the local, he has got somebody to whom he can speak to. If you don't have anybody to speak to, then it is the Jungle Raj which comes in. So I think political penetration is very important. It is essentially a political problem. Development is a side issue. You see, development can help mitigate the political problem, but it is not simply a question of development. There are many places in India which are underdeveloped, which don't have this problem. So this is something which has been inspired. There is an ideology which is working against India and which is using these areas. So we have to resolve this issue by hitting out at that ideology which claims to plant the red flag over the red fort. Now that ideology has to be eliminated, right? And the process is through political penetration, development, security, and rights, which is what has been formulated by the government, which is a good policy. Implementation is weak in parts. Vishal.
Okay, Mr. Chaudhary, would you agree with that part? It looks like it's now, if we take a holistic view, then it's a three-stage process. It's not just about battling this problem on two fronts, that is security and development, but also going further, having community engagement and political penetration as well, as both General Katoch and Mr. Durga Prasad are pointing out.
Mr. Durga Prasad has very graphically, described the problem as it started and as exists on the ground today. Now, you see, fortunately, the numbers have come down. Ideology has weakened. The leaders have aged. They have become very old. There is no new leadership emerging. We should take advantage of that and dominate the areas which need attention immediately. That is the South Chhattisgarh, as he rightly pointed out. Presence has to increase significantly. Presence means domination, not patrolling, but camps have to be established to establish the foothold of the government. And that, throwing out the government, I think that dream is almost over. We are in a good phase. We need to sustain the pressure. Interstate cooperation, center-state cooperation also holds the key. See, it's not policing in our country under the Constitution is a state subject. But the problem of Maoists have taken advantage and transgressed state boundaries to strike and to get away, escape from one state to another. That has improved drastically. Gadchiroli district in Maharashtra was full of Naxalites. We've had one of the worst incidents of killing of security forces in that area. But now that area has diminished. It's just a mere small pocket. So you see, dominance on the ground by the police forces holds the key. And intelligence. use of intelligence.
Okay.
Use of intelligence. You see, the Naxalites have an excellent human intelligence network because the villagers they're in touch with. But unfortunately, our forces are not that closely in touch with the community on the ground, the villages.
Okay.
The CRPF is a disadvantage, but the Chhattisgarh police can certainly play that role.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Let me bring in Mr. Nitin Agarwal as well, since all of you have put the focus on the central zone here. Mr. Agarwal, you're there dealing with the crisis now. The question is vis-a-vis the security part of it, because obviously first we will have to have the dominance in the area, and then we can proceed with the rest of the strategy vis-a-vis development and community engagement, and of course political penetration as well. So what are the challenges there? One, and two, when we're talking about the center-state cooperation, because yours is a central agency, it will have to work in tandem with the state police force as well, and the counterintelligence aspect, as Mr. Chaudhary was pointing out. Are these the bigger challenges there?
Well, we are working in several states at the same time, and the extent of cooperation is largely very good. And where the cooperation is very good, the results are obviously very good. In Jharkhand, for instance, we have had a series of successes in recent past. In fact, there was a 12-day operation going on, and in which we have caught about 11 Naxals, and some of them were rewardees. I mean, they were having a huge reward on their heads. So, and I'll also like you to, recall what Mr. Durga Prasad said about low-hanging fruits in Bihar and Jharkhand.
Mm-hmm.
They are remaining in certain discrete pockets now. It's not a continuum anymore. So we are operating there in Chakrabandha. No operations had taken place in the last 3 years, but right now we have our CRP men sitting inside Chakrabandha area. A large part of it has been cleared. In fact, I myself visited Chakrabandha. I was in Chhattisgarh, in Chakrabandha, in the area which were considered unreachable by security forces.
Mm-hmm.
And it was very heartening to see even the villagers welcomed that. Now, coming back to the strategy part and the challenges part, you see, we have to take development to the places which were so far facing governance vacuum. Now, in order to take that, we need roads so that other agencies of the government, for example, the education, the public health, revenue, social welfare, for them to reach the interior areas, they need roads.
Mm-hmm.
The roads which were already existing were dug out and cut off long back. Now we are in the process of building these roads. We make a camp, and then the road building is protected and road building goes on. Like that, we are progressing and reducing the geography available to them.
Okay.
The area which is under their, influence is reduced to a great extent. Right now, MHA had issued a list of districts which are affected by Naxalism. It has reduced to 70 and to 21. In the 2018 list, there were like 90 districts.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a huge difference in just 3 years.
Okay.
Yes, but at the same time, there are challenges. For example, the road construction pace, that is extremely slow and painful.
Okay.
Now, what I see is that smaller contractors are taking the contracts and they're building. It progresses very slowly. My view is, and in the House also we've discussed, it would be much helpful if bigger contractors came in and brought in machines to construct roads.
Okay.
Machine-oriented construction will be much faster, and we can get results much faster. That is what I would like to say.
Okay. So basically giving a push to the developmental works out there is becoming a bit more crucial there. Mr. Durga Prasad, on these two aspects, one which Mr. Agarwal pointed out and the other one referred to by Mr. Anil Chaudhary, that is the cooperation between central agencies and the state police. how crucial do you think it is, and where do we stand, both in terms of intelligence sharing as well as ground dominance there, and the developmental part, which Mr. Agarwal referred to, that the pace of the development needs to be given a push there. Both things need to move hand in hand.
Well, I would say that law and order is generally considered a state subject. And for this particular problem, LWE, whichever state has owned the problem, the state administration and the state law and order machinery, wherever they have owned the problem, you have found solutions faster. No amount of external forces or paramilitary forces can really achieve the result if the local police and the local administration are not really putting their heart and soul into it. So as Ms. Nitin Agarwal has rightly mentioned, wherever the support and the working in tandem is seamless, there we have achieved fantastic results. Where there are certain reservations, for whatever reason, there where the results have not been so great. So that is absolutely one thing that is needed.
Okay.
Secondly, coming to the development part, is after all in Telangana also, the reason why we could achieve in the erstwhile Andhra, why we could achieve the success, whatever we achieved, was that we have done two things, multi-pronged approach. One is the development, the other on the security forces being beefed up, training, equipment, etc., being pumped in, a lot of resources being pumped in there. We have created one department exclusively called RIA, the Remote and Interior Area Development Department, which was actually dovetailing all the schemes of the government and making sure that the development reaches to the people. In fact, even small measures like CRPF itself has done that in interior villages, particularly in Bihar, they have helped the local people start poultry farms with the assurance that we will buy the eggs and 50% of the eggs we'll take it. And if the market is not taking the balance also, we'll take it. And surprisingly, within 2 months, they have doubled the entire capacity of their poultry farm. Similar things, where, we, after all, what do villages need? Certain small benefits to them. Wherever we have started in interior areas, field hospitals, the response was phenomenal. The villagers came to the hospitals irrespective of the fact that despite the Naxals threatening them not to come to the hospitals. So wherever there have been initiatives taken for reaching out development to them, things have happened fantastic.
Okay.
And as Ms. Nitin Agarwal was mentioning, see, the physical connectivity, digital connectivity, medical connectivity, health connectivity, education connectivity, these things are provided, automatically they'll come into the whatever is called the mainstream.
Okay.
Because if you really see, if you plot the map of India, plot all the forest areas, all the hilly areas, all the underdeveloped areas, you will find the places where the Naxals are thriving today. Okay. The reason is that they don't have connectivity per se. And when we are trying to do the connectivity, when we have Chhattisgarh, we have actually gone ahead and cooperated with the state administration so much that we lost a large number of people. So much so the chief minister has announced that this road should be named after CRPF because of the amount of blood that their jawans and officers have shed on these roads. Okay. So that is the amount of sacrifice that has gone into it. Okay. But it's worth that. It's worth that. And once we really open it up.
Indeed, the fruits of democracy, once it reaches to the ground, it does, have that impact out there. Mr. Chaudhary, you wanted to add on something here.
Yeah, thank you. You see, development definitely holds the key. They have been deprived of development. That is one of the causes of rise of Maoist violence. But there's a note of caution to be added here. If I recall correctly, it was during road construction activity that a very large number of our CRPF Jawans who were killed not that long ago. So they know. You see, the Naxalites know where the road construction is taking place. So you have to surround that place effectively through outer rings and, all around, so that they're not able to strike at the in the presence of the security force. Number two, you see, the Forest Act amendment has deprived large sections of the tribal population of their means of livelihood. Let's face the fact, I do not know what the latest position is, but most of them were dependent upon tendu leaves and other things to make their ends meet. They have to be substituted, as very correctly pointed out by Mr. Durga Prasad, by teaching them, chicken farming or handicrafts or bamboo making, whatever. They have to be made they have to be able to fill their bellies, make their small homes, and live happily. That's what I wanted to add. Thank you.
Okay. General Katoch, your views there on the developmental aspect, because as you were earlier also referring to, and when we take a look at the National Action Plan, which was put in place in 2015, it puts a lot of focus on the development part there. Of course, the security aspect is equally important, but as Mr. Durga Prasad is referring to, Mr. Agarwal is also referring to it. It looks like both things will not only have to go hand in hand, but also will be dependent on each other.
Oh, Vishal, there is a great deal of interdependence on each of these activities, but I want to give three. I want to give 3 bullet points. One, you see, ultimately, it is an ideological problem. So if you want to defeat Maoist ideology, you have to replace it with something better. And if that something better is the idea of Indian democracy, then please make Indian democracy work. Your justice delivery mechanisms must work. I have been to those areas, I have toured those areas, and unfortunately, when you're looking at what you call the Jungle Sarkar, that is the justice given by the Maoists, that is very swift. It is ruthless, it is swift, but it is given. The government of India doesn't give justice at all. You see, there's nothing functional. So who do they depend on for justice delivery? This is one. Number two, on the development plank, in my interaction with a large number of DCs, commissioners, right up to the chief minister, this of course happened about 6 years back. Things may have changed, but the way I look at it, things don't change that dramatically. You see, there is no long-term perspective plan for each district.
Okay.
I had recommended at that time, every district should give a 10-year perspective plan and phase it out every 6 months. There should be timelines to see where do we wish to go and how do we wish to do it. Now, there is no common plan for all the districts. Every district has to have a unique methodology. And this has to go right up to the chief secretary through the chief minister and then come down as an action plan.
Okay.
Now, we aren't seeing that. You see, the effects are focused tenure ways. Okay, this is what I will do in the next 6 months or 1 year. Now, that is why this developmental effort, I think, is getting diluted.
Okay.
Security, of course, is essential. And as has been stated earlier by Mr. Chaudhary, you know, if the road is being built, the Naxals will target it. Now, to protect that road, you don't have to sit on the road. You simply have to ensure that the Naxals can't come within 5 kilometers of that road. Now, that can be done. That is the question of how the police forces are trained and how they are equipped.
Okay.
In this equipping and training of the CRPF, I don't want to sort of sound this thing. You see, please don't depend on upper end technology. Don't start thinking of mine protected vehicles and all that, because they will simply put more explosives and knock out that vehicle also. Don't think of big UAVs. I think you need to empower the ground troops who are operating at the company level with mini UAVs. You need to empower them with better night vision equipment and with training at the ground level.
Okay.
Now, I have been to those training schools where excellent training has been imparted. Unfortunately, the better lot of people, once they are trained, they don't operate in battle groups for these operations. Many of them are taken away to protect VIPs. I don't deny the chief minister having a better man to protect him, but then train the CRPF in battle groups.
Okay.
And my last point is, and I've advocated this for a very long time, the CRPF battalion commander must be there to command his troops. Now, that is not there. The CRPF is operating in company groups. The CO may be 1,000 kilometers away. I think it is very, very unfair on the CRPF, which is a very great force, which is working under very difficult circumstances. And I've actually seen how difficult it is for the CRPF, how difficult their operations are.
Okay.
So I think a great deal, we need a change in the method of operations, especially in the command and control structures, and in training them to operate in subgroups, and ensuring that those people who are trained are not taken away and diverted to other purposes.
Okay.
Vishal.
Okay. Those seemingly are a very, very detailed suggestions coming in from there, General Katoch. Let's quickly have a final concluding comment from Mr. Agarwal here. Mr. Agarwal, since you're there on the ground, and not only your views on the suggestions which are coming in from General Katoch and the other panelists as well, but also if in a nutshell you could tell us the way forward from here when we are talking about tackling this problem. Of course, we have been very successful. The numbers are very, very positive, but the problem still remains, and we will have to root it out completely.
Yes. You see, since very learned people and people who have handled this subject for so long Here, I must remind that the problem in South Bastar, the hue of Naxalism which is there in South Bastar, is not the same what it was in, let's say, Bengal, Bihar, Jharkhand, or even Andhra.
Okay.
Because the tribals here have no issues of peasants, landless laborers versus landlords. Their issues with the Forest Act. Now, Forest Conservation Act, when it was brought in 1980, these tribals who were taking this forest as their home suddenly became encroachers or squatters in their own home. Now, that is an issue. Now, this has been studied and this has been addressed, and Forest Rights Act was brought in 2006. Now, rules are being framed in different states to ameliorate this situation, and a lot of work has already gone in. They have been given pattas in forest. So that is one point in the passing I just wanted to mention.
Okay.
Coming to the suggestions given by General Katoj, these are very welcome suggestions. But let me tell you, General Katoj, that you will be happy to learn that all that you have said has already been done. Number one, the people who are trained in jungle warfare are not taken anywhere else. They are deployed in the areas where their units are deployed and fighting, doing the jungle war.
Okay.
We also have Cobra element. I'm sure you're aware of that. And Cobra elements, usually their operations are led by their commander, the commandant. Thirdly, although we operate in company basis, but depending on the size or gravity of the operation, commandants of general duty battalions are also leading operations. So I'm sure you'll find it a welcome change compared to the era where you observe these things. But yes, we need to continuously evolve our strategies, which is being done. We usually have brainstorming and we analyze all operations in all details.
Indeed.
And draw necessary lessons and make preparations accordingly.
Okay.
Now, coming back to the strategy which you were asking, along with the securing the roads and ensuring construction, we also need to bring people aware of what's going on in the world.
Okay.
Now, mobile towers is an issue. People who are in the jungles, you see, they have lived under the influence of Naxals for about 40 years now. They started coming in 1980.
Okay.
And it's like 22, so about 40 plus years. So those who are current generation, they were either small kids when the Naxals took control of this forest area, or they were born after it was already under their control and the elements of state had withdrawn from that area.
Okay.
So it is their fait accompli to be grown, to be brought up on the agenda, on the narrative given by the Naxals.
And that is something which has to be challenged.
To wheel them away from it.
Okay.
So in that connection, I am suggesting that we should have internet in these villages at the earliest. And in fact, I spoke with some of the collectors in that area. They're very forward-looking gentlemen. And I suggested to them, why don't you make some community centers with television and, some platforms like Tata Sky or
that's a very, very valid suggestion, Mr. Agarwal, and that's something which Mr. Durga Prasad also referred to in terms of, connectivity, not only physical connectivity, but also digital connectivity, because this is the digital era. Of course, they would also want to stay connected, and it'll be an entire new world which will open to them. We're running very short of time, Mr. Agarwal. I'm sorry I had to, cut you off. Thank you so much, in any case, for your views and, the points which you made, General Katoj, as well, Mr. Anil Chaudhary and Mr. Durga Prasad also. As our experts were pointing out, it is quite clear that this battle against left-wing extremism is being fought on many fronts. It's not just about having security dominance on the ground, but also the developmental works, the community engagement, and connectivity in terms of physical connectivity, the digital connectivity, and ensuring that people in these areas do get the benefits of government schemes and developmental works as well. We'll come back again with a different topic. Till then, keep watching Sansad Television. Thank you.